I know I'm generalizing, but the fact is that most people are pretty bad at giving feedback, and most managers try to avoid it. And also, it's not just about giving feedback to the people you're managing. Yeah, it's about, in general, colleagues, other people, your boss, we'll see. Yeah, people think that it is only necessary to give rectifying or critical feedback or evaluative type feedback that they need to give and practice. But no, people specifically need to get better at the type of feedback that I'm talking about, which is geared to motivating, validating, recognizing and improving performance of the individual, your direct reports and the team as a unit. As I said, in humanitarian work in general, organizations do not seem to do this enough or even value it enough because they don't make sure it happens in their hierarchical lines or in their support lines. It's common for aid workers to risk their lives every day and receive no acknowledgement whatsoever, no gratitude from anyone. Often it is the communities that are more generous in giving their gratitude to humanitarian aid workers than the actual employing organizations, something that shouldn't happen. I'm sure you will agree. For example, it's common for international staff to go and work for 6 months, a year, in very difficult conditions, in risk, finish their contract and go home with no real recognition of their effort or their sacrifice, because there's always sacrifice and suffering in humanitarian work. Sometimes they just get a Skype from somebody in HR, nobody has any time to speak to them. This shouldn't be the way. I'm convinced that if people in humanitarian organizations got better at giving this types of feedback that I'm talking about, satisfaction, motivation and performance would all improve, and so would retention. National staff are barely ever given this type of feedback that I'm talking about, and are often criticized, and as well as having to suffer the constant rotation of different styles of management or managers that are constantly criticizing how good they're not. Burnout is speeded up when there's no motivational feedback. Burnout is a drained feeling of energy depletion on an emotional and a physical level. There's a lot of burnout in humanitarian work. When there's burnout, there's no motivation. So, and burnout, when there's no motivation, is accelerated because of the hypercritical environments that are typical of high-pressure work environments. Not just humanitarian work, but humanitarian work is combined with risk. If you're working very hard, day in, day out, for months or even years, and you're not getting any feedback, of course you're going to burn out. But if you're not getting any feedback, you need to also ask for it. If you're working with a manager who doesn't give you any feedback, you need to ask, but not in a generic way. So saying, hey, boss, how am I doing? That's not the way. I've done this sometimes because I've been working in a kind of a void, not knowing if I'm doing the right thing or what, and it doesn't work. Yeah, you need to be prepared, and you need, because if you just ask, hey, how am I doing in a meeting, and your boss is not prepared, they're not expecting that question, they will be caught off guard, probably feel uncomfortable, and they won't be prepared to give it to you. So apart from the fact that the question you're asking is too generic, you risk getting a long list of things that your boss spontaneously thinks or has thought in the past that you're not doing well enough, and you can leave the meeting very demotivated and very demoralized. Again, here, timing is everything. Yeah, if your boss is super stressed, wait for a better time. It's not the time to ask for feedback when your boss is super stressed or worried about something. Also, whether you ask for feedback or not should depend on your perception of your boss's capacity to give you feedback directed at performance impact or motivational impact in a sensitive, tactful way. If your boss is thoughtless, aggressive, don't ask for feedback. It's only going to make it worse. If your boss is the never satisfied type or the dictatorial type that we discussed in Survive Your Boss, don't ask. Yeah, they only see the negative, so they won't see the positive. Be wary too of the boss who is always giving positive, happy, generic feedback to everybody. That is the problem with generic feedback given too often. When you hear that everything is fantastic for every single thing to every single person, that feedback loses its motivational power and credibility because it's generic and it's given all the time to everybody. And people aren't stupid. The art of giving good feedback is in the impact. It's in how the person feels motivated afterwards, either to improve or happy and content because they've been told they've done something well. They need to see the good intention behind what you're saying and that you only want the best for them and the team and the project and the program. And then you're not just complaining or criticizing them. That is why it's so important to learn how to select your tone, words, body language, timing, and context for when you give feedback and also when you ask for feedback. When you ask your boss for feedback, make sure you're genuinely asking for performance feedback. Don't go fishing for compliments. Be specific. Know the difference between asking for feedback, thinking and hoping that they're going to say something nice to you, or asking for something so that you genuinely know, okay, I need to work on that because that needs work on, and you understand why. Hear the difference between, in a meeting with my boss, I say, hey, I'd like to know how I'm doing. And when I say, for example, when I write my monthly report and I give it to you, is there anything in the report that is missing that you need? Right? That's a much better question, isn't it, than how am I doing? And also less of a risk. Don't be afraid of feedback and learn how to manage criticism. You will receive criticism because, as I said, most people don't train themselves on giving impactful feedback well enough. So there will be the managers that just know how to criticize. Criticism is hard for everybody. You might think it's just you, but no. Some people hide it better than others. When somebody gives you feedback in a way that hurts you, it usually means that they have not done it in a sensitive way, or they have targeted some aspect of who you are, your identity, rather than something you've done. There's a big difference. You shouldn't give feedback or get feedback on people's personality or your own personality unless a behavioral issue is being addressed. It's not good to say to people, you're too arrogant or you're lazy. Yeah? There are other ways to say this and other framings if it is in a professional context and having an effect on the team. Apart from being hurtful, it's too generic and too personalized. And it's not going to improve motivation or performance telling somebody they're too arrogant or too lazy. It's important always to make sure when you're giving feedback that you let the person speak. There used to be this golden rule that, just accept feedback and say nothing, don't argue with feedback. And that's true, no? It's true that you have to listen to feedback, but it doesn't mean you have to just blindly accept it. If you don't understand it, you need to ask for clarification. Yeah? If it's coming from your boss, you need to pay additional attention. But feedback can always be useful if there's some truth in it. But it does depend on how it's given. If you feel it's been given in a hurtful way, you can say that. Yeah? So, hey, I don't mind you giving me feedback. I like it, but could you give it to me maybe in a less hurtful way? Or if you genuinely don't understand the feedback, you don't see it in yourself, ask for examples, but not in a defensive way, right? Asking for examples shouldn't be a way to counteract feedback given and to put the manager on the spot or in a difficult position. No, it should be genuine. And if you are affected, you can say, thanks so much for the feedback. Do you mind if I digest it? I'm a little bit upset, and let's talk about it tomorrow, and then make sure you go and find the person or tomorrow, whatever day, and bring up the point again. If you have a problematic boss and you need to give them feedback on something that is impacting you negatively, again, as I said, make sure you choose the right time, the right words, the right tone, and have reflected on the personality and typical reactions of your boss so that you're not surprised. And the same goes when you have to give feedback on performance or motivation with your colleagues or other teams or other departments. And above all, make sure you don't confuse gossip and criticism with feedback. It's not the same. And also be careful about advice. Advice can sometimes be disguised criticism. So be careful of that, right? Don't give advice that's really disguised criticism. Give feedback that is designed to have a positive impact or motivational impact on people and teams.